Speaking of which, our next guest, Michaele Thurgood Haynes, a cultural anthropologist who studies community festivals involving pageantry and young women in over-the-top dresses, which is what a lot of the guys here were studying, and Texas providing an amazing number of such events. She was curator at the Whitty Museum for 15 years, has taught at a number of area colleges and universities as adjunct faculty, currently teaching at the University of the Incarnate Word, UIW. Michaele Thurgood Haynes! Hey, you wanted me to give you more time.
I used to want to be a circus performer, and now I feel like one after that introduction. That's going to be a hard act to follow. But fortunately, I'm talking about Mardi Gras and Fiesta. Topics of interest. I have frequently heard people say that Fiesta is San Antonio's version of Mardi Gras. It is not. I wish I could say that my anthropological training made the difference immediately apparent, but I have to give credit to Rick Casey for a column he wrote many years ago for initially, initially pointing the basic differences. Here's my mad dash through the comparison. Carnival is the whole period between January 6th and beginning of Lent. Mardi Gras, or Fat Tuesday, specifically refers, obviously, to the last day before Lent. Carnival, including Mardi Gras, is celebrated in many parts of the world, including New Orleans. Carnival in New Orleans is based upon crews, the generic term for all carnival social clubs. The oldest is the Mystic Crew of Comus, followed in the 1870s by the crew of Rex and Proteus. Members were wealthy white men and no one else. There are no limits to the number of crews, so a wide variety of groups began to organize. In 1909, the Zulus became the first African-American parading crew. It is known for throwing decorated coconuts and wearing blackface. There are now at least 78 different crews. There are no limits. Okay, Fiesta began in 1891 with a parade honoring the heroes of the Battle of San Jacinto. The parade split in two at the Alamo and passed back and forth throwing flowers at one another, i.e. the Battle of Flowers. New events were immediately planned for the next year's celebration. Over the decades, more and more events were added until Fiesta now lasts for 10 days and includes over 100 events. These girls are from the Escaramuza riding team, part of the Charreada. The Fiesta Commission oversees all of Fiesta. But Carnival equals parades and is focused on the streets. Throughout the season, individual crews parade separately, each with 15 to 45 floats at routes all over town. Crews choose a theme, plan the route, and recruit a marching band from among local high schools. There are also 58 matching clubs and dance troupes who each have a parade, but without floats. These are often neighborhood or special interest-based groups. They're leisurely parades with stops at bars along the way. These are the pussyfooters. And they are having a good time. Fiesta floats are important, but school bands and dance teams seem to get more attention. In the early years, floats and carriages were covered with real flowers, but after it was difficult to get enough, paper flowers were used. Now, plastic petal paper covers most floats. No more throwing of flowers. In the early 19th century, private masked balls restricted to the elite were the highlights of Carnival season, not parades. They included elaborate tableaux based upon the crew's theme, and by the 1870s began crowning either a king or a queen or both. Elaborately dressed debutantes are found in both cities, but the Order of the Alamo coronation, established in 1909, does it in Texas style with a full court. Every year, entirely new gowns and trains are custom made. No one ever wears her mother's or her sister's. The Order of the Alamo Queen was the official Fiesta Queen for years, but beginning in 1950, additional queens more representative of the city as a whole were added to the royal lineup. Carnival, however, has always had multiple queens and kings spread across social groups since many crews elect their own royalty. Fiesta has two kings, Rey Feo representing the Mexican-American community and King Antonio representing Anglos. They both wear paramilitary uniforms and make visits to schools and hospitals, etc. Carnival has many more kings, usually in costumes and makeup, who rule over parades and balls. King Antonio started the tradition of handing out medals, first in schools and hospitals. Kings were the primary dispenser of medals for decades, but now virtually every organization and even businesses sell them. The handmade ones may be the most desirable by collectors. Fiesta goers compete for medals while beads are the currency in New Orleans. The crew of Rex started throwing cheap glass necklaces in the 1920s. Beads, now plastic, continue to be extremely popular, but throws include everything from stuffed animals to frisbees and even bikini underwear. Carnival is marked by excess, particularly of alcohol. Fiesta goers can indulge in lots of street foods, and we certainly drink plenty of beer. But instead of removing pieces of clothing, as in New Orleans, we seem to construct ever larger accessories. Masking is always part of Carnival. Masks are required on floats, at the balls, and many people on the streets also don disguises. Masks hide social identities, and that encourages enjoyment of pleasures forbidden during Lent and even at other times. In Fiesta, only 2 official events suggest wearing costumes and masks. Thank goodness for corneation. It provides carnivalesque qualities of ribald satirical fun and outrageous costumes that can stretch social boundaries. Here is the quintessential difference between the two festivals. There's overindulgence at both festivals in terms of food and drink, but Mardi Gras is like corneation and Nyosa on college night all mixed together. Why do we have great fun at Fiesta, but rarely get naked in the streets? Fiesta is based on history. It began in honor of military heroes, and we are a military city. Fiesta parades include lots of American flags, and San Antonio's most sacred site, the Alamo, remains the center of many activities from military bands to the solemn laying of wreaths. Carnival, on the other hand, is based upon a religious practice superimposed on pre-Christian seasonal observances marking the end of winter and the beginning of spring. Such seasonal junctures are liminal or in-between periods which traditionally are marked by inversions of social positions, of moderation, inverting moderation in food and drink, and overt sexual behavior, all facilitated by disguise. So if you wish for Fiesta were more like Mardi Gras, start making your masks. Thank you. Here he comes.
That's right. Use the right end of the microphone. Yes, here he comes. All right, let me use this, put that over there.
All right.
How did you get into, I mean, I know obviously you've worked at the Whitty for a time where they have a lot of dresses.
Right.
How did you get into the study of not just the dresses, but the history?
Actually, it was because when I went to SAC as an adult, I already had a degree, but didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I met Carol Canty in another anthropology class, and Carol was very involved in Battle of Flowers Parade. And I began to learn about it through her. And we both went to graduate school at UTSA together. And then she invited me to her son's future wife's coronation. And by that time, I was going to UT Austin to get my doctorate, and I thought, why in the hell go to New Guinea to study amazing costumes when we have this in San Antonio?
Speaking of which, Battle of Flowers, I don't know if people realize, is the biggest parade, in the country run by women.
Women, exactly.
And how did, because that's different than New Orleans.
Right, absolutely. And that very first parade in 1891 was started by women, and their husbands immediately wanted to get into it, particularly when it was so successful. But the women held their ground and said, no, the parade is ours. And the men formed what was the Spring Carnival Association. And they kept trying to get businesses, get more business downtown and tourists coming and so forth. And the ladies said, no, this is a historic commemoration. It's for the heroes of San Jacinto. So they keep pulling it back from going over that carnivalesque top.
Yeah, you mentioned, if you want to get it more like Mardi Gras, make a mask. Which do you like better?
I have to say Fiesta. I'm too old for Carnival to really enjoy it as it should be.
How about one other question? A few years ago, the king, was it Larry Benson, one of the kings, got thrown out of one of the parades because he, being from New Orleans, threw stuff.
Right.
Do you think that San Antonio is behind the curve on that?
I think the throws are wonderful, but when you look at the parades in New Orleans, the spectators are right adjacent to the floats, and we're more separated, and it's for insurance purposes. And apparently in the past, one time someone here in San Antonio was injured by some kind of throw. This was decades ago, and so now they're just totally forbidden. But it's another one of those things that adds to an exuberance.
What would you change about Fiesta? Uh-oh.
Oh, oh dear.
Christ, speaking of queens, we got, no, wait. That was for you, Michael. He's not paying attention.
The next Michael.
What
would I change?
Yes.
I don't think I would say that I would change anything, but I am so impressed that over the years, Fiesta, which started out as a very elitist event, and it has grown and grown and has become ever more inclusive. And I think that's why people truly love Fiesta. And so I just think I would encourage that kind of continual embracing.
And I know you're not there, but I tell them what they can see at not only here, but at the Witty about Fiesta and some of the history.
Well, I know that there's going to be an exhibit from the 1969 Court of Time and Space, the only court that ever was designed around the future. And that was done by Margaret Stanley. And so that will be fun to see.
And two last questions. Show us your shoes.
Oh, no, that's the other Michael. You've made an error.
Yes, I have. Well, I didn't ask you to show us whether you've earned your beads or not. Have you earned beads before?
Yes.
Yes! There we go. Thank you very much.
Not that way.
Oh, not that way. Right.